about next year, but as of now, he is not a factor for them as they prepare to play the Buffalo Bills in their wild card playoff game this week.
Well, let's show you how that news yesterday impacted the point spread at Caesars. This is actually a line that has been moving all over the place all week as this story has developed. It opened at Bills -11. It dropped to -9 as recently as yesterday morning. And then right when this news broke yesterday that Tua would not play, it jumped 4 points. So now it's Buffalo -13. And it doesn't feel right just immediately to jump into all of the bigger picture questions without first saying that this is it is a terrible thing, and we've all lived through this horrible news of last week. But the reality is these concussions are frightening, Ninko, and you just hope that the young man, and who knows, he's got some decisions to make in his life right now also. First, foremost, and forever, you just hope that Tua is all right long term. That's the most important piece of this.
100%, and I talked about that weeks and weeks ago when he initially had that injury. So he has to make sure that he puts himself in the proper position for the future down the road. And at this point right now, the Dolphins, they need to also make sure that they put him in the correct position, because it's just because it's a playoff game, you can't throw him out there on the football field. Make sure he does the right thing.
No, so none of us were surprised that this went the way it did here this week. And to Dan's point, I think almost all of us assume that it is overwhelmingly likely their season will end this weekend, and thus they won't have a decision to make following that. That said, Bart, it does seem as though they will have decisions to make going forward in Miami about whether or not he is their long-term answer. How do you see it?
I mean, much like the Lamar Jackson situation, I don't know how you can invest in a player long-term. He's eligible for a contract extension. I just don't know how you do that in good faith, knowing that, next season, if he gets 1 or 2 concussions, it could be the end of his career. You just feel unfortunate for the young man, because we always take a measured, calculated risk, and he hasn't got to that contract. So it's hard for him to walk away. Listen, this has been the family business. His entire family moved from Hawaii, moved to Alabama, and he's right there at the doorstep of getting a mega deal to be able to secure generational wealth. But it may not be left up to him, and you hope that he makes the right decision. But I can see a decision being made that you bring in a guy like Tom Brady. We're going to start hearing the Tom Brady rumors, because the reason they have 1 first-round draft pick, or they had 1 instead of 2, is because they lost it because of tampering with Tom Brady. You think about the connections with Michigan. You think about Tom Brady saying he's not retiring. That's a way to kind of give the guy a fail-safe. Tom Brady's not going to take all the money. But also, you think about, this was a team that had 2 first-round draft picks, because before the season, the narrative was Tua Tagovailoa the long-term solution? And they thought that he was, and they gave away those, or they lost those 2 first-round draft picks. Now they find themselves in an unwinnable situation, because if he can't win and Teddy Two Gloves is your backup, where do you go for the future with a roster that you push all the chips in, going for Bradley Chubb?
That's the point. We've been sitting here trying to, as we speculate about Brady's future, if he decides to play beyond this season, we've thought about, well, who is just Tom Brady away from winning a championship? And we've continuously gone to San Francisco. Well, suddenly, if this is a possibility, Brady with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and they made the move on defense for Chubb and everything else, the second I saw that in Bart's notes, I thought to myself, that one makes all the sense in the world to me.
Right. A series of ifs have to be cleared first, right? If they decide, or if Tua, first of all, he's got a decision to make, right? If the concussions are a significant enough issue in his mind that he wants to think about maybe not playing football anymore, that's up to him and his family, and they have to sort that out. If he wants to come back, the Dolphins would at the very least need a more reliable backup, to Bart's point, than Teddy Bridgewater, who has been injured in both of the games he started for them this year, replacing Tua. So you need to make an investment there. Now, we know that they have had interest in Tom Brady before. We know that Tom Brady likes the warm weather. We know that he may want to continue playing. So if a situation occurs where the decks are cleared, where Tua's not in the plans, or where they are not sure, then yes, it makes a lot of sense. It's just, there's a lot of ifs, and a lot of it's very sensitive. I don't want to be here sounding insensitive. Obviously, Tua Tagovailoa played well enough for the Dolphins this year that they can convince themselves, and probably have, that when he's on the field, he can lead them where they want to go. But the question, of course, becomes his ability to be on the field.
What is your sense of all this? Again, I would remind everyone, Ninko played with Tom Brady for a long time. Is your sense that he wants to keep playing after this year?
It seems like it. Every interview that he's on, he keeps talking about continuing to improve and improve when he's 48, 47, whatever he's going to be next year.
He'll be 46 next year.
He's old. So at the end of the day, you look at, he has to go to the right fit. The team that he goes to has to have everything that he needs to succeed, which would be number 1, an offensive line, right? Number 2, a dynamic receiver. and then a good defense to help get the ball back to you. So when I look at Miami, I think their offensive line, I don't know
but
if they invested heavily. Great offensive line.
They invested heavily in an all-pro left tackle. And to me, I feel like if he goes to Miami, it becomes a package deal. Gesicki, their tight end, is up for a contract. He may be a free agent. You call old Grunk. I think he'll like to come back to South Bend.
Oh, my goodness.
I'll call him and see what he wants to do.
We're putting Brady.
I also think that Tua, to be on the roster still, I don't think you could bring in Tom and have Tua on the same roster.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
I think you can. From a financial standpoint, you can.
And the other thing, like you talk about extension eligible. The extension eligible doesn't mean the extension is required, right? Like you have 2024 would be his fourth year, or sorry, his fifth year option, and then 2025 franchise year. So you don't have to extend Tua this year if you aren't sure.
So there are a lot of questions that come up, and to your point, we don't want to be sitting here speculating. When the young man has got some significant issues to deal with. But I mean, this is the reality of pro football. They've got to figure out what they're going to do.
Right. The reality is, can you count on him to be available? And the cold analysis right now indicates that that's at least in question.
Meanwhile, as we continue another quarterback situation, Dak Prescott's accuracy issues. Will they longer? Lamar Jackson yesterday missed his 16th straight practice. He is not suited up since injuring his left knee on December 4th. And you need to hear the coach, John Harbaugh, on the continued absence of the former MVP.
I don't have any really thing to add on that. No updates at this time.
Because fans do it. They go and they say, oh, this has to be contract related. What do you say to fans that think that that's the reason of this?
I don't really have anything to say to them right now because I'm focusing on the game. Really, I mean, that's what we're focusing on. So that's it, really.
All right, Bart, I wish you could have all seen Bart's face as Coach was talking. And again, this is an organization you know awfully well. What did you hear from John Harbaugh there?
I mean, he's deflecting. I feel like he feels defeated. I feel like he feels he's out of words. He can't. He doesn't understand. I mean, listen, this is tough. We're talking to Nico, and he said how serious the PCL injury is. I've never had it before. It's reports that swelling is going. But I don't think this is contract related because it's just not in Lamar's character. I mean, he decided to step out there. I don't see how he doesn't see this through if he's physically capable to play, not stepping out. I'm concerned with his future because if they can't figure out, if he can't answer the bell for 2 years in a row, missing 5 games last year, 6 this year, I don't know how the Ravens in good faith can give him a guaranteed contract. And if he doesn't get a guaranteed contract, I don't see Lamar Jackson signing with the Ravens long term, which just leaves you with the franchise tag, which, we understand how that works out. A team doesn't want to spend a franchise tag. They damn sure don't want to do it twice because all the power and the leverage goes to the player the more times that you decide to franchise tag him. So at some point, the Ravens may say, if he wants to go down a franchise tag, we can't get a guaranteed contract. We're not willing to offer that. This could be the last time we see Lamar Jackson in a Ravens uniform.
I agree with you.
That would be a shame.
It would be startling of a player at his age and his accomplishment. But here's where I slightly disagree with your read on Harbaugh. The easiest thing for John Harbaugh to say in that situation is, look, he's just too hurt to play, guys. Right? I mean, if John Harbaugh, if he could easily look at that camera and say, this has nothing to do with his contract. His knee is swelling. His knee is hurt. Leave the guy alone. He's doing everything he can and isn't healthy enough to play right now. Coaches have said that a million times. And to me, the fact that he is choosing not to say that speaks volumes.
There's something going on beneath the surface there, right? Like you can tell. You're absolutely right. He could say he's injured. When he's healthy, we'll play him. What he's saying is, I don't know what's going on. I can't talk to that. I'm trying to get ready for the Bengals. Look, franchise tag is very likely, especially now. They signed Roquan Smith. So that was the other candidate for the franchise tag. So now you franchise tag is likely, but then what? Does he play on the tag? Do they continue to negotiate a deal? Do you trade him? Right? Like, is it a Devontae Adams situation where they franchised him so they could make sure and get something for him? That these things are on the table now to an extent that they weren't before. The injury, the team's expectation when he got hurt was that it would be a few weeks, couple or 3 weeks, right? I mean, they are surprised that it's gotten to this point. And I think that brings in a lot of other possibilities that didn't used to exist in this situation. I'm not saying, I believe his knee hurts. I'm not saying he's holding out because of the contract. But to Bart's point, they need him right now, and he's not available. You're going to talk about a long-term guaranteed contract. You're going to say, we needed you and you weren't available.
2 years in a row.
Yeah. But, Nico, what do you think of this?
A PCL injury is almost worse than an ACL injury because there's not a great treatment for it. So time will help. But the PCL in itself, inside your knee, you really can't fix it. And it's a really tough situation for a guy that relies on his mobility to be asked to go out there when one of the biggest stabilizers of your knee is compromised. Yeah. So you can't look at it in a sense of say, well, this is contract. No. This is career-oriented. You have to make sure you make the right choice for him moving forward. And you can't put yourself out there if one of the biggest parts of keeping your knee intact is compromised. You can't do it.
But you have to go to contract, right? Because I've seen a quarterback in Phillip Rivers play without an ACL, with a torn ACL against the Patriots. I understand.
But if he had the point is, if he had the
contract,
security and all of that stuff, maybe you're willing to risk